Hey there, and welcome back to our game design playthrough of Portal. We resume where we left off at test chamber. Dun dun dun. Oh, there we go. 16. Test chamber 16. This is a particularly cool one, as it is our introduction to the turrets, which look awfully familiar if you've ever played Half-Life 2, but have a lot more personality in this game. Anyways, you'll notice that, okay, so first thing to notice right out of the gate, the sign is blank when you first arrive, and GLaDOS starts talking and the door's closed. You have to listen to what GLaDOS says, so you know that there's jokes and stuff, it's funny, all that, but you know that you're about to see turrets, which is something you've never seen before. We haven't really had explicit enemies in the game up until this point. This is our first exposure to something like that, and GLaDOS just sort of primes you on it using some of her classic fun humor. And you have the big sign, which also shows you the tile for the turrets and the fact that they shoot you and stuff, which isn't obvious just looking. Now, Portal's been doing this throughout the game with the various mechanics, but it's set up here just so bloody brilliantly. Just making sure that you are introduced in a sort of in a way where you get to discover it yourself, but you are thrown in gently. It's not like they open this door and there's a turret facing you have to figure out what to do and you get shot down 3 times before that happens. Instead, you open up, the door opens up, and the first thing you see is a bunch of turrets behind glass. And you get to see them, and you can see the red lasers, which obviously show where they're looking. And you can see what's going on and just sort of say, okay, those are turrets. Then you walk into the room, and the turret over there is set up so that with all the glass, it will start firing at you. So you can see, okay, this turret's firing at me, but it's obvious this glass is getting in the way. So they'll fire at me if I sort of get into their range. So you're slowly, just step by step, introduced to that. The next thing that you're introduced to is quite obviously seeing this turret here, but again, it's not facing you. So now you get to interact directly with the turret, but it's set up easily enough so that you don't have to worry about it shooting at you or trying to get around it yet. So what most players will do is probably either bump into it or try picking it up, at which point its panic becomes obvious and you can just sort of put it down somewhere else or throw it and knock it over. If I can get the throw, there we go, that will work. And knock it over, and that's your first, so that you sort of figure out how to defeat a turret. The next one, it's set up again so that you can see. It's so brilliant. I'm sorry. I could just rant about this for ages. It's set up so you can see the laser before you get there. You know, you've seen the lasers before. You know that there's a turret somewhere. You can see the wall there. It's not there. It's on the other side, pointing there. So you know that as soon as you enter there, you're going to enter its line of fire, and you kind of need to be careful. It doesn't catch you off guard. It's set up so that you know what's happening at every point. You just need to figure out what to do. So you say, okay, so there's a turret there. All right, so you walk out and you can see it. Alright, oh, and sure enough, yep, there's a turret, and it will start firing at you if you walk out, and like there's a short delay, which is again very smart game design choice. It's a short delay so you can sort of peek out and see it, and then you have to run behind cover. You don't instantly start getting fired at and get all confused. You have a second to realize, oh, there's the turret, and then it fires at you, or to like sprint across or stuff like that. It's useful for just the design with puzzle solving as well. But anyways, this is the next stage of puzzles. You've taken down a turret from behind, which is pretty trivially easy. Oh, that blood. Now you have to take down a turret using some fancy techniques. And by fancy techniques, I mean portals. So that's what you need to figure out here. Back here, this was all non-portalable surface. I believe this area actually right here, which is where the turret was portalable. So I think you can do that, but players aren't going to. This is their first exposure to the turret. They're not going to do that. But this whole area in here is all non-portalable. It's kind of obvious. You just knock the turret down. Here, everything is portalable, in stark contrast to this hallway here where it was non-portalable. So you're thinking, alright, portals, and you can put one there, and put one here. There are a bunch of different ways. You can drop down from above, you can place to the side. You basically just need to get around the turret so you can do what you did last time, and get it from behind where it's not able to see you, and then knock it over. Alright, and then you're presented with a similar situation here. Another way to solve this one actually is to place a portal at the feet of the turret and drop it down. Anyways, there are a whole bunch of ways you can solve it, and the player's just going to sort of learn those ways as they go. Now, one of the interesting things about this one is, well, 2 things. It's very similar to the last one in that you can see it from the side, and then you sort of peek out, you can see the turret's there, and then you can peek back. But in this one, you just need to get past it. So if you wait for that to settle, you can actually just run right past the turret, and it will not kill you. And you could actually go on and finish the rest of the chamber and everything would be fine. Some players might do this. It's up to their choice. But a lot of them, having just taken down that last turret, will think, okay, I should probably take down this one. Let's run back to the other side. Oh, this doesn't really matter. And what they'll do is they'll peek out and they'll see the X on the roof. And that'll sort of, there's many ways to take out a turret, and that's one of them, and that's one of them you're going to need very soon, is that you can drop down or drop an object down, spoilers, and you can take out a turret from above. And so players will see that X, probably place a portal on that X. You'll notice that that X serves a very similar purpose to the marks set by the pellets, or there were numbers in a previous chamber, like the 1 and the 2, that appeared directly above the platforms with buttons on them, so you could drop down and land on the platform. They're set up to sort of line yourself up with stuff on the wall, and this is another example of that. And it becomes very useful when you have to drop cubes and such on the turrets. And so then you can do that, and you can knock it over, or pick it up or whatever. Now this up here is so interesting. So you're presented with another one here. And this is, now you have to use the cubes and drop the cubes on them, because you can actually take out this first one by putting the X up here. I'll see how far this sets me back. I'll just let it kill me. And they'll do this, and they'll do what they did with the last guy over there. And they'll drop down, and they'll take him out, and they'll say, "All right, I'm doing well," and then they get taken out by that guy, because that turret is covering where you need to be in order to take this one out. So that solution is obviously not going to work, and the player might try this and realize that. Or they might be smart and see the red laser and know that something else is going on and they shouldn't do that quite yet. It'll vary by the player. But the solution, of course, is to start using the cubes to knock the turret over, and then you can take out the other one the more classic way. Now, I just love the way this is set up. This is your first little peek, if you remember, into the behind the scenes, sort of hinting at what happens at the end of Test Chamber 19, or in quotation marks, Test Chamber 19. And this is your first sight behind the sort of sterile gray walls with nice glass and everything being smooth and white and or brown and everything. And it's your first peek into the behind the scenes, and it's done so well. Like, just look at what the player sees as they come around this corner. You can't actually see anything. You can't see the marks on the floor or anything as you come around. Here, you see the introduction to the chamber, or this sort of set of the puzzle. With the turret's firing at you, and you're like, okay, there's another one here, I'm gonna have to take this guy, and you come around, and then you see it. You see the help. So it's not like you can see this from a distance and sort of go, what is that, and slowly get on there and go help. You're just here. It's set up specifically so that you're right here, and then you round the corner, and it's right there. And it sort of creeps you. I mean, this creeped the hell out of me when I first played the game. Oh man, it was fantastic. But it's right here when you round this corner, to sort of naturally move closer to this guy. It's right there. The corner of your vision, you see hell. I'm like, what the hell? And that also draws your attention to the cubes, which you're going to happen to need to solve this puzzle, as well as the handprint. And so the player will probably take the cubes. That will cause that to move and then stop. And they'll take this one, and then it's not a far reach to realize that you can... Oh wait, you can just kind of go in here. And then you get to witness all this, the crazy scrawlings. You also get a key prompt to crouch in case you want to get over here and look at what's going on over here too. And then notice the nice music comes on. The really kind of... This is probably my favorite song in this soundtrack. It's just really... It's like... It's not creepy per se, it's just... It makes you just sort of sit there and look around and go, whoa. This is... It's not freaking you out. That's not the right word. It's just... It's enthralling. I don't know. You get to see this sort of side of the facility that you haven't seen before. Things have been kind of weird and creepy and a little sketchy, but you've never actually seen this side of it. You've never seen behind the sterile walls, and you've never seen these crazy scrawlings of someone who must have come through here before you. Not a word is spoken, but so much of the backstory or what is going on without you directly seeing it is being told just in this one little section right here. So much of the story is being implied to you without actually being directly said to you, and it lets... Again, this comes back to the discovery. It lets the player figure out this stuff. It lets them realize all these elements of this is not game design in this case, the story. Realize these elements on their own, just sort of come here and see all this without having someone narrate it to them or whatever. And it lets them discover this, and it's just fantastic. Anyway, so they found that that's a nice little diversion. They come back out here, now you've got to solve this puzzle. So the solution, of course, is to realize that using that nicely placed X there, which is helpful for the lineup, particularly since you only have a split second when you can deke out here and deke back in order to place that there. So it's just helpful to line stuff up. Now, another thing that I'll mention before I do this, and I'll actually kill myself once in order to show this, when you get shot at by the turrets, it pushes you backwards. And this, I mean, this is probably a little bit realistic. If you got shot, you'd kind of be, there's some force pushing you backwards. Not a huge force; it gets absorbed a lot by the skin and everything. But there is some force pushing you backwards a bit. But what this is really useful for is it keeps you from being able to charge a turret, which is something that you would otherwise be able to do. Actually, I don't know. I might be able to do it here, but I definitely can't do it with the other guy. Let's see if I can charge this turret. That is just sort of walk up here, walk right at it. Oh, I can get this guy. Oh, and he'll actually shoot me while I'm holding it. Oh no, the other guy will shoot me. That's right. But anyways, this guy you can charge if you really want to, but you'll get shot. You'll get shot down by the other guy, so that's not a viable solution really. But this is a design so that you can't, or for the most part, it makes it a lot harder to charge a turret. Otherwise, you could walk into the line of fire, and then with the delay and everything, you'd have a long period of time at which you could sort of hop or sprint towards the turret, and then just pick it up, and that would render a lot of the puzzles kind of null and void because you could just run at them and take them out. So when you get into the line of fire, it knocks you backwards, and that keeps you from running straight at the turret. Or it at least makes it more difficult and slower to run straight at the turret, which helps create all these possibilities for taking out a turret other than just running at it, which would kind of break these puzzles if you could do that. So anyways, let's solve this. Let's go there. Let's do that. Let's drop that down there. That guy gets down. And then you can take the other guy out the same way if you'd like, or you can just deke out and drop on him. Either works. I'll take him out like this. If you accidentally dropped both cubes... Oh, did I miss? Oh, I missed. If you accidentally dropped both cubes, then you can take this guy out the normal way. Which it looks like I'm going to have to do now. There he goes. Oh, no. There we go. And so that drops you... So you can hide from that guy, but it drops you within sight of him. So the next thing that you have to do from here... Cause, I mean, you can sprint across that doorway, but... That's not really what the player's going to try and do. They see that guy, they see the wall behind him, they know what to do at this point. Oh, you do, right? You do have to sprint across in order to get to the portable surface. And then you can drop behind him, these two guys here, and you can take them out. You'll notice that the floor here is non-portable, so you have to go behind them. You can't try and put something beneath them or whatever to get rid of them. At least not yet. And then you get into here. With the, I believe, the second... radio after the initial chamber, apart from the update that added all the radios that occurs naturally in the game, and wrenches. Anyways, so the next section, you can actually, this place in here, which is probably where the player will be drawn first, acts as a pretty natural viewing chamber for this this next section of the puzzle, where you can clearly see the guys shooting at you, the buttons, 3 turrets. You can look at the roof. You can see that this one, there's a X on the roof for taking that guy out. Same there. I think this guy might have one as well. I can't tell from here. Those 2 guys are standing on non-portable. That guy is standing on portable, so you can take him out like that if you want. You've got a whole bunch of cubes here. You've got a button in there. You're going to have to get those cubes in there somehow and clear that room out. And so using the dropping the cubes that you've learnt before, players will just do a bunch of things here. Drop that guy. And there are just a handful of different ways that you can take these guys out. And they just have to use what they've learnt to take those guys out, basically. That should knock that guy, and that leaves one more. There we go. And then that brings you to this one. And so the player at this point may either drop a cube or just stand on it to see what's on the other side, and they'll see, oh dear, there's another turret there. You can see by the red light, even if you can't see him right there. And this, so then they'll take one of the many cubes that they've probably already dropped in here, and they'll see that guy. And this section, I mean, it's basically what you've done before, just portaling behind another turret. But the difference with this one is that you can't, or the difference with this one is this mesh, basically. And this is, if I remember correctly, this is the first time you've seen this mesh, and you have to place, you'll just try placing a portal through it and see, oh, that actually worked. And then you can walk through and take them out pretty easily. And so this is the first time that you've had to place a portal through mesh, and the players learned now, okay, you can place a portal through mesh. That works fine. And this is something that is used several times later on, and I believe it's used fairly extensively once you escape into the guts of the chamber. And anyways, you go behind him and you can take him out. Whoa. And then this this turret here provides you with an interesting little bit. First of all, it's just a unique angle which to take out a turret. We've had one before where you approach it from the back. In fact, we've been doing that with a lot of them. But you can't just approach from the back here because you can't make it far enough because of this mesh. And you can't walk through a mesh, so that's pretty obvious now. What's key about this one is that it for most players, what they're going to try and do is place the portal directly in front of the turret. and then with this one already here, or with they'll have like one here or something like that, and they'll place their portal directly in front of it, and they'll get shot at through the portal by the turret. And that's what is being taught here. Just like everything else in the world, physics and basically the existence of all objects is consistent through portals. So if you place a portal somewhere, the turrets can shoot through those portals. And so the solution, of course, is to place one on the edge where it can't see you, and then take it out. And you'll notice the floor is, of course, non-portalable, so you can't just solve it by dropping it down. You have to solve it using what they're trying to teach you here. And onwards. Now the next chamber is the famous companion cube chamber, if I remember correctly. And it's an interesting one. They're all, I mean, you'll notice I'm saying this, they're all interesting ones. They're all interesting chambers, and that's part of what makes this game so stellar. I'm sure there were loads of chambers that weren't as interesting as the ones that are in the final game, but they all got cut. And that's what's so brilliant. Basically, every chamber in this game feels like it has purpose, and it feels like, oh, it's that chamber. You remember them all because it comes back to, they all teach the players something new about the game mechanics. They all have something. None of them are just sort of filler to waste your time and just make you do random crap with the portals. They're there with a purpose. There's something they're trying to teach you about the game mechanics. And for that reason, you remember something. In the last one, it's the android. In this one, it's a bunch of things with the cube, including killing the cube, which we'll get to later. And a few things using a cube to bounce pellets and that sort of idea. There are a bunch of things that you learn, but every chamber you remember it for some reason. You'll also remember this chamber for the witty and strange yet awesome writing behind the idea of using a companion cube, which will hurt me if I stand here. Anyways, you'll notice right off the bat, this is actually where you end up at the end of this chamber. You can see it right off the bat. You can see the, I don't remember what they call it, the pit of fire that you're going to drop it into eventually over there. But we'll get to that in a bit. So this here, they just figured out a really witty way to sort of work writing into what they want to teach you. And what they want to teach you here is a few novel uses of a cube that don't actually involve portals, that you might not have gotten to yet. The first one of which is using the cube as stairs, which is, again, there's no portals involved. It's very simple, but it's something that might not have occurred to a lot of people. You can, in fact, just stand on a cube like any other object and use it to get up these stairs. And there's no portable surface nearby except for that, which you can't use because there's nothing down here to portal into. And so you can use the cube to climb stairs. And that's something that players probably haven't thought of at that point. It's just exploring all the consequences of the game world that they've set up here. They have cubes, they have regular physics for the most part. You can stand on a cube and use it as stairs. And this is forcing you to do that. And by having the companion cube that you know you have to take with you, it creates a situation where having to do this makes sense. Alright, and so you can very clearly see there's a warning about being hit by a pellet. You can watch the pellet bounce back and forth. There's a mark here on the wall. And so this here introduces another novel use of a cube, and that is as a shield against a pellet. Because if you try and walk through here, no matter how fast you go, you're going to get hit by the pellet. And so you just kind of have to bounce it off like that. I might end up accidentally dying here, but I'll try not to. And then you just have to do the same thing here, but backwards. Or you can do it backwards, you can do it forwards, it doesn't really matter. Oh, I'm going to die here, aren't I? Oh, there we go, cool. Or like this, backwards, depending on where the pellet is. And that, I mean, again, they say that you have to carry the companion cube with you, keep it with you at all times, and these puzzles here with the stairs and walking through those hallways require you to keep the companion cube with you in order to solve them. What they're saying and what they require you to do work together and work in tandem here to create I don't know, a unified experience or something. That sounds hokey. I don't know the right word. That sounds weird, but that's what it is. They're working together. They're not just two random things. They made up some random story thing to try and write it away. They came up with something that made sense and worked with the game design and the solution to the puzzle in order to make everything in the game feel like a coherent whole. Alright, so here you actually have another one of the sort of secret behind the scenes things here, except instead of trying to walk through, which you might try and do, you have to use a portal to get inside. And notice from both sides there is always a portalable surface in view. You can just do that and then you're in. And then you can duck and walk around, and there's even more scrawlings, some really weird stuff with the companion cube. And this is it's both funny and creepy and haunting, and I don't know, it's just fantastic. Anyways, whoa, out we go. Alright, so basically here we have 3 discrete puzzles that we have to solve in order to raise these 3 platforms, the sort of trails that connect different elements, make this kind of obvious. So let's go solve them. Now this first one on the left is kind of like a natural continuation of the pellet stuff that we did just up there. And that is bouncing a pellet off of a cube. And that's what you have to do in here. Most players will probably drop the cube or whatever and just go in, and they'll look at this, and this looks like an impossible chamber. There is nowhere you can place a portal, which is how you've been solving this. It's quite obviously not going to go in there. You can't run up, you'll get hit by the pellet. It looks like an impossible chamber, and it just takes the leap and realizing that what you did up there applies directly to here. You can use a cube, as you had to get to this point, in order to solve this and bounce it in. Now this might take me a few tries because I'm notoriously bad at this, but let's try it. Good enough to bounce it in like that, and that's how you solve the puzzle. Again, a novel use of an element in the game, in this case the cube and the pellet, that you might not have thought of before. We're so used to thinking about everything with the portals that we kind of sometimes forget just the really simple things that you can do with the elements in the game world, and this is what the designers are trying to bring up. They're saying, I mean, there's all these awesome things you can do with portals, but hey, there are also these other smaller things that you can do just normally with the elements of the game world, and these have some interesting results and create some puzzles that work in a totally different way than you're used to thinking, even once you've gotten used to thinking about portals. Alright, so the next 2 will require the pellets that we passed in order to get here to solve them. The first one's pretty simple. We place one there, it's going to bounce, and it's going to go in there. Again, just a mixture of bouncing and just stuff that we basically already know. Now, part of this is sort of helping the player realize that we have to use the pellets behind us. This is a pretty easy one. The one down there is a little more difficult, but it's still not that difficult. But this one is basically pretty obvious. Okay, we need to get it in. You could either put it there or there. This sort of stands out in a really weird way and makes it obvious you should put the portal there. And then the player just needs to realize that they put, oh, now I gotta wait. They put that there, wait for it to pass through, it will bounce and go in, and that will solve the second one. Give that a moment. There we go. That should do it. Now it's worth noting that I don't believe, I could be wrong, but I don't believe that the order in which you solve these affects which of these platforms come up first, but that's kind of a minor detail. Anyways, the third puzzle is this one. Now, what most players will do, again, it's always useful in game design to think about what a player will do at any point in the game as they're approaching a puzzle, or in this game, a puzzle. And the first thing they'll probably do is see a button, walk up to it with the cube, place that, go through here, and then they'll say, okay, this is interesting. And then they'll go around here, they'll say, okay, there's another button up there, I can't get to that, maybe I'll need the cube for that or something. And then they'll walk around and they'll see, okay, the receiver's here. So this is what I need to do. I need to get the pellet into this receiver. There's another one over there, I've already used it, I know I can get it in here. But I need to have both of these doors open. And this is the mental leap of this puzzle. You can't get up there. You can, as a person, only stand on one of the buttons to open them, but the cube can go on both. And so you have to realize that that you have to specialize. In this case, the cube is the only guy who can, between you and the cube, who can depress that button, while you as a person are left. No, the cube. Sorry, I phrased that wrong. You as a person can only use this one. Therefore, the cube can also use this one, but because nobody else but the cube can use that one, you have to set it up like this with the cube over there and you over here in order to open both the doors. And then it's just a matter of portaling over here, getting the pellet, and doing everything. It's a bit of a walk to get over there. Anyways, I'm notoriously bad at dying when I get hit by pellets. I get there. And all the way back down here. Oh, hey. Let's put that one right there. And then you sort of just need to watch this. Depending on where you put it, you might be able to duck under it, but I'm not going to count on it. Let's wait for that to go there. Open the door like that, and then go through. And again, a player might try and stand on here to keep the doors open and realize, like, as they're standing here, oh crap, the pellet's going to hit me. And then they'll stand off, and it will close, and it'll hit the door. And you just have to realize that you can either, depending on how you place the portals, duck, and it will pass over you, or just stand on it as soon as it passes you, and that'll work. And then we're going to grab the cube. Now, players might not remember to grab the cube. It depends on what order they do these puzzles in. They might not remember to take the cube with them. But that's what we ultimately need to do, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it. I think this brings us where we want to go. Yep, okay, cool. And through here, and on the nice platforms that we've made, and through to the near end of the puzzle. And up here, and into this sort of central area that we were actually able to see. There are the stairs, right from the beginning. Now, what's interesting here, again, no GLaDOS if you just stand in here. So if you come here without the cube, you can look around, you can do stuff, but you can't actually do anything. And GLaDOS doesn't start giving you any instruction or any sort of, prompts as to what you're supposed to do. Because killing this cube, or euthanizing the companion cube as an objective doesn't really make sense. So having GLaDOS's voiceover helps. So the GLaDOS doesn't start until you activate it with the cube, so you have to have the cube with you. And that allows you into here. And you'll realize this if you try and stand on there to move on. Now, this little setup here is really interesting, and I believe it was mentioned in the developer commentary, and it blew my mind when I first heard about it. This setup here with the furnace, I don't remember what it's actually called, the furnace, and dumping an object like a cube into it in a certain amount of time. You can hear the ticks, and then wait a bit and it'll close. I think they actually give you a lot of time here, but whatever. It's open for a certain amount of time, you have to run, get something, drop it in, and then it closes. This is training you for the final boss fight. That's what this is. Without you realizing it, the game is already at this point, this is test chamber 17. We haven't even gotten into the back of the, like, behind the scenes, there's a better word for that. We haven't even escaped the main facility yet. And they're already training you, basically, for the boss fight. So that when you get to the boss fight, you will subconsciously remember what you've done here, remember what you, without realizing, have been taught to do, and be able to do it and discover it there without anyone having to say, okay, here's how you beat the boss. You've learned it before, and they're teaching it to you right here, and then when you get there, you just remember it. Oh yeah, this is how this works, and it works. So this is training for the final boss fight. I don't know, I just find that's ingenious. And then they justify it with some, well, not justify it, but they give it sort of reasoning in universe with some funny dialogue and talking about euthanizing the cube and, pictures and stuff. And euthanizing it more quickly than any test subject on record. But you get the idea. And anyways, that blew my mind when I heard that. It's stuff like that makes me just fascinated by game design. The decisions that designers make without you as a player consciously realizing it. And then when you go back and look at what they're doing and actually take a close look at what they've set up in order to guide you through the game and ensure that you have the experience that they're trying to design for you, it's just fascinating to see what they do and the ways in which they go about doing it. So anyways, that covers test chamber 16 and 17. We'll continue next time with test chamber 18 and beyond. Until then, portal away.